What's going on, Stature Icons? It's me, Jahliel. It's been a while, Jahliel Wilson, and I'm back with another episode. Today, we're going to talk about cockroaches, where I was, and stories that we tell ourselves, and why we have to change those stories if we want life to be different. So, let's jump right into the episode. Again, it's me, your boy, Jahliel Wilson, Stature Icon. Let's go! This was supposed to look cooler, but let's get to the episode. Welcome to another episode of the Stature Icon podcast with me, your host, Jahliel Wilson. It has been a little while since we don't record the Stature Icon podcast, and why? Because, man, I have been moving. Yep, moving. And I had this idea when I was going to move that I wanted it to be something that would be seamless and effortless for my family when I decided to move. And so I wanted to, do what it required to make sure that was the case. And what that required was me pretty much taking almost 3 weeks at this point to kind of get us to the point where we are moved. And wow. I didn't think it would take that long, but that's what it took. So today's podcast, I want to talk about some things that I've been thinking about over the course of this 3 weeks while I was moving. Yeah. And some of these things are like, I hadn't really thought about it, but they affect me. And so I thought if they affect me, there's a good chance that they affect some of you. So therefore, it is my duty and my pleasure to talk about these things. One of the things I was reading, so I've been all over the place. I went from woe is me to okay, I'm tripping, to you know what? The future is looking bright for me, to I don't know which way is up. I don't know which way is down. All I know is that I've got to figure it out. I went through all these emotions in the last 3 weeks. And there was something that was a constant thought process of mine. And one of the thing that was a constant thought process of mine is that things are always moving. We do not get to stay stagnant in this thing called life. Now, that's a great thing if that is your mindset. And I will be honest, here at Stature Icon with myself, that wasn't my mindset. I know the creed, maximize the moment, have resilient posture to whatever goes on in life. Yeah, I know. And also to create with courage and laughter. Yes, I know those are the maxims. But none of those really address the fact that crap changes all the time. And you either are going to change with it or you're going to get left behind. So now that this house thing is done, I can kind of talk about the process I had to go through mentally. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think we all have to go through this process in one way or another when life changes on us. So for me, the way life changed was I did not picture at this present moment in my life being a homeowner. I did not picture that. I did not, I won't say I didn't desire that, but I just didn't see myself being that. And I think there was a few reasons why. One, I thought, hey, to have the most financial flexibility, I need to just keep running. And then 2 was, I don't even know what that process looks like. And the thought of owing someone for 30 years for a mortgage just didn't really appeal to me. And so I had no desire to really be like a homeowner, right? And then the other part is I've never done that before. I never went through that process. what is that process like? Who, what do I need? What, how do I know this is going to work? I went through all these emotions, right? All of this. And it was one of those things where from this experience, I learned that sometimes we just make things more complicated than they have to be. So which makes me come to the question, and I gotta stop saying so. Anyway, which brings me to the question. What in your life right now, my fellow stature icons, are you making more difficult than it has to be? Like what? Because there's something right now that you're not believing about yourself, or thinking that you can do, or thinking that you can be, or thinking that you can have right now, because you're making the process more difficult than it has to be, because you actually just honestly don't know what the process entails. I want you to think about that for a minute, because we are all the prisoners of the stories we tell ourselves. And I'm a storyteller, so I tell myself some elaborate stories. I mean, just creme de la creme stories. Now, these creme de la creme stories, I'll even go as far as finding evidence to back the story up that I've decided to tell myself. That's how, excelente I am when it comes to the stories that keep me imprisoned. I like to make sure they are flavorful and full of life. Are you doing the same thing? Are you telling yourself these stories that are so elaborate? I'm sorry, I gotta pull up this mic. Telling yourself these stories that are so elaborate that you can't help but, stay stuck, stay lost, because you've created this jungle for you to try to navigate through. And you're trying to, it's almost like trying to navigate through a jungle blind. You don't have, you're trying to navigate through a jungle blind for the first time you've ever been in this jungle. Of course you're going to be confused. Of course you're going to believe you can't do this. Well, we create these jungles all the time when we put these obstacles in place that we created in our mind to stop us from even attempting what actually might be beneficial to us. That's the crazy part. And that's, and I've been thinking about that, for as I'm going through this process. Like, I'm telling you, it was to the point, this process for me was to the point where I was kind of mad at my wife, low key, for wanting to buy a home. And I'm trying to think of all the reasons. And I started, reasons we shouldn't do that. I started watching podcasts. I mean, I really went forward with this. And it took me thinking about, okay, Mr. Jahliel, what are you actually afraid of? And what I was afraid of was just, I have already stated what I was afraid of. And is that a good reason not to buy a home because you're afraid of these things? No. Okay, so if that's not a good reason to not buy a home, what should you do? Okay, so if I'm concerned about, the financial aspect of this, well, maybe I should make sure I do my best to get the best deal I can. So then I'm not looking at this like as something I got hosed. And maybe I'm sticking to a price range that is affordable to me. Like, make sure I'm doing all these things, right? So I did those things, and then the process was cool. It was like perfect. Like, it was almost like, okay, you surpass round one. Round one. Finished. And the next round was then after I got through that, I had to do the mental work. I even talked to my wife about it at one point, and we got on the same page. Well, we got on the same page. And then the next thing that I did not expect, because again, our mind creates these stories, these elaborate tales. The next thing was, okay, after we got the home, I felt like, okay, wait a minute, I don't deserve a home. What? Like, I don't deserve one. This, like, I gotta stop saying like, I don't deserve a home. That's what I was telling myself. Like, so I just said it again. Okay, let me breathe. Let me relax. Okay, so there's that word. Anyway, I was telling myself that I do not deserve a home. So then I started feeling embarrassed about the fact that I now had a home. And then that embarrassment led to shame. And I literally felt shameful for having a home. A home that my wife and my children can call their own. A home that, relatives can now come and stay at, or friends can host dinner parties, or whatever we want to do. I felt guilty for having the ability to do that. Now that sounds nuts. But the reason why I'm telling you that is because I need you to question the stories that you are telling you. Now, when I say that out loud, it sounds pretty nuts. I want you to think about a story that you are shaming yourself into right now. Whether it has to do with your height, whether it has to do with your worthiness about a job, a friendship, a child, whatever it is. I need you to say the story that you are telling yourself out loud so you could hear how ridiculous it is. And then once you hear it and you realize how ridiculous this story is that you have decided to tell yourself, you make a decision. And the decision is a simple one. You are no longer going to believe that story. So I've decided I'm no longer going to believe the story that I do not deserve a house. I deserve it. I'm here. I'm here. We are recording this first episode in my house. We are recording this episode in my office. Yeah, my office, my house. You have to tell yourself that, right? And my biggest thing is no one has everything all figured out. We're all on this journey, learning stuff as we go. I'm not going to get on here and pretend that I got it all figured out. I'm working through stuff just like you are. And I'm sharing what I'm learning as I'm going. Because this is how I maximize the moment. This is how I show resilient posture. This is how I create with courage and laughter. This is how I do those things. By sharing what I'm learning on the journey. And so, for you, say the story out loud. It made me think of the movie. I don't know what movie it was. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm brown. That's what it made me think of when I went kind of like this. So, whatever. You may not be black, but just whatever the things. The point is, say the story out loud. So you can hear the story and you can decide that you're going to tell yourself a different story. Because that is what we have to do. We have to stop being prisoners to stories that no longer serve us. I was reading this book, and I'm going to end with this. I was reading this book, and I can see the book, but I can't remember the name of the book. It has something to do with a roach. I'll put the I'll put the description in the comments because I literally can't think of the name of the book. But it has something to do with a roach, a cockroach. And I grew up in the hood. And I wouldn't even really call it the hood because I've seen some real hoods, and my hood wasn't like that. So I grew up in, well, till about 10. I don't even know. From some age to some age, I lived in a hood. And I remember seeing a roach or two. So I do not like roaches. But I saw this book while I was at the library the other day. And it got me to thinking, why the heck would somebody write a book about a cockroach, a self-help book about a cockroach? It made no sense to me. And I was like, I have to read this book because I need to understand why this person did this. After I finished the book, it was about 97 pages. I realized I still hate cockroaches, but I actually enjoyed this book. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed this book. And what I enjoyed about the book, he just was dropping gems, nuggets, the whole way through the book. It made sense why he used a cockroach. It made sense. And he brought up the point that in some parts of the world, a cockroach is a delicacy. I may visit those parts of the world, but I still will not be eating a cockroach. I'm just not. That's like me, back when I was 8, 9, 10, just walking in the living room, seeing one on the ground, and then just picking it up, thump them on the head, and then not happen. It didn't happen then. It's not going to happen now. But what I did take away, there was one line that really got me like, okay. And it was this. He said, most people are afraid to die while simultaneously being afraid to live. I was like, bore, because that person was me. Like, being afraid of death, I have, just the thought of that was just like, ooh. But then at the same time saying, okay, I'm afraid to live. This was a natural progression for me with the amount of kids that I have, that we get a space that they could be. They could live, they could do, they could have, they could see. And it wasn't because of me. It was to show them the possibilities of what could be. That's what it was about, not about me. And luckily, I have a wife that did not allow my mindset about the next step for us to deter her from pursuing the next step. I'm glad. I'm thankful for that, because that would have been a disaster had she actually listened to me. Yeah. Anyway, so are you living? Are you living? Are you afraid to live? You have been given a gift, and this gift needs you to partake in it, to get the most out of it. But you can only do that, and I'm telling myself this too, we can only do that when we allow ourselves to stop believing these stories that are keeping us prisoner. We have to stop. So my fellow stature, shouldn't have said so. My fellow stature icons. My desire, the challenge to you this week is to say the story out loud that you have been telling yourself. See how ridiculous it sounds. And maybe it doesn't sound ridiculous to you because you've decided to let it keep you prisoner. Well, remember, I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. You can create what you want because you are a creator, but you have to believe that. But in order to do that and see yourself differently, we have to let go of the stories. So I need you this week to say the story out loud, then make a decision to let it go, and then decide, well, if I'm no longer telling myself this story, what should I tell myself? You have to decide that. I don't know what you should tell yourself, but I definitely think it should be something that uplifts you and not, deflates you. That much I do know. All right? So my fellow stature icons, you know what it is. It's your boy. Actually, I'm not a boy. It's your man, Jahliel Wilson. And I'm out. Until next time. Remember, you are enough. I believe in you. This is my house, baby. And I'm recording in my house. In my office. Because I no longer believe that I am not worthy of having what I have. And I know more is coming to me. How about that? Now, what do you believe? Think about it. Till next time, I'm gone.